Welcome everybody to the most free-to-play Etheria Restart guide for Terrormaton Inferno you will ever watch, with no exception. This is going to be as bare bones as it gets. Is the run slow? Yes. Is it 100%? No. But does it absolutely work and it's the lowest possible gearing you will ever have to do? Yeah. I think it is. We are bringing only one 6-star Animus. The other 4 are at 5 stars. That 6-star is going to be D-Ting. We are bringing only 2 SSRs, and both of them are at 5-star. Also, both of them have absolutely no perfect lattices into them, and all the gear you are seeing in this video is totally mid-game gear. No slot 3 gear, no special shells, nothing like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. You can see the runs are slow as sin, but absolutely they do work. And if you take advantage of farming this when there is a blessings galore live like there is now, especially one of the ones with the double stamina consumption, you're actually not having the slowest runs in the world, because in the amount of time it takes you to do one normal run, you're effectively getting 4 runs worth of resources. So actually, if you don't think too hard about it, it's kind of like the runs are 1 minute and 8 seconds, 1 minute and 9 seconds. Obviously not exactly, but if it's during one of those special periods, that's the kind of bang for your buck that you're getting. But all in all, it is a clean run. It is fairly consistent, though not 100%, as you can see behind me. It is a bit slow, but it is very scaled back. So it is extremely free-to-play friendly. I am 100% free-to-play, and by the way, my name's Fastidious. You can call me Fasty. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please do subscribe. But it's not just that I'm free-to-play. I've scaled it back even further. So guys, let's get started and let's hop on in. It's important to do at least a little bit of Terrormaton Inferno so you can pick up your first pieces of Ether Plague like this one here, or certainly Fury Edge. Once you have those initial pieces, you can get some 3-slot shell builds finished and everything will be elevated. The D-Ting you're gonna see in this video is actually only in a 2-slot shell, just like everyone else. He's very scaled back, but if he was in his normal, a little more late game build with an additional Fury Edge set bonus and a 3rd slot for his shell, this would be even faster. Not saying much, it's incredibly slow, but let's get into it, guys. So let's begin right now. Let me show you the run. You're probably wondering about the success rate. It's somewhere between 50 and 70%. Occasionally, I will get 2 successful runs and 3 failures, but usually it's either 3 or 4 successful runs. This is going to be the comp. The 3 key units in the comp are going to be our 3 SR units. We've got D-Ting right behind me as our solo DPS, going low and slow. Then we've got Valerian for some great support, putting out some buffs, healing over time, and of course, death saves and health equalization. And then finally, we've got Kachi the Guard. And with Kachi the Guard, he is very clutch with his S3, putting out increased defense, immunity, and extending the buffs that he puts out and everyone else puts out. And very underrated, his S2 for knocking back a little turn meter. For the final 2 slots, this is where I'm bringing our 2 SSR units. You essentially just need a lot of support. So you need some kind of healing, you need maybe some kind of shielding or additional support, and that's what we're going for here. We are getting healing, turn meter boost, shields, and increased speed from Fushu. And from Mia over here, we're getting a little cooldown reset, some good AoE heals, we're getting some buff extension, and from our S2, we're getting a little turn meter pushback against the enemies. All in all, the comp works very well together. It's essentially D-Ting and just a ton of hard carries. Let's go ahead and see this fight in action. We're gonna start off with that auto cast of the S3 from Valerian that is triggered by having her ultimate, her S3 maxed out. So that is a skill you want to invest in, but she's an SR, so it's pretty easy. Then we came in with Fushu. Fushu put out the increased speed and the shields, and you saw there Kachi should have died, but because we had the maxed out S3 of Valerian, we got the death save, and now everything's back to being good. Mia comes in with a nice little heal. Cooldown reset we didn't need yet for D-Ting, but helps with everyone else. And then D-Ting comes in with his ultimate, focusing on the attacking hand. So this is the hand, the arm on our left. It's actually the right arm, the right hand of the boss, but just think of it as the left side hand. You have to take this out first, then move on to the Terrormaton boss. If you let this guy linger, he just destroys your run. But already, let's pause it one more time. You can see we're stacking buffs. They have very long durations from all the buff extension we have in this comp, and that's kind of the fight, right? D-Ting's going to slowly DPS this all by himself, chip away at the left hand, pretty quickly take care of that, and then move on to the boss, and everyone else is just keeping him and the rest of the comp alive, carrying it, tons of support, while D-Ting takes care of the boss. And then that's kind of what we're working towards here. So I think I'll just go down the line and explain everyone's role. Mia is coming in with buff extension, big heals, and then a little cooldown reset. Very clutch. I also have Mia in a 12 matrix time weave. So 35% of the time she resets, or actually she lowers the cooldown of all her active skills by 1 turn. This is pretty clutch. But mostly she's there for the heals. You're going to want some good AoE healer, and then ideally that unit has some other kind of support. Let's actually move on to Fushu now because she's going. Fushu has her Moonlit Veil mechanic, which gives a lot of extra healing and turn meter to everyone else. She also puts out big shields and some increased speed, and she's just doing a good job for us. If we look at her shell, she's got an Artisan. This is just additional shielding, additional support. We'll talk more about the Artisan when we talk about Valerian, but quickly I do want to focus in on D-Ting. You'll see he just took out the left arm. Now we're focusing in on the boss. So the remainder of the fight, we will just be targeting the boss. And you'll see it's kind of just a race against the boss getting these stacks over here. So if you want to know exactly how the fight works, as it goes on and on and on, the right side hand, his left arm, the support hand, is placing this reconfigure attack boost on him, and he's stacking it over and over and over. So even with all this support, the run can fall apart if RNG doesn't go our way. This is RNG restart after all, and if these buffs get too high, he can eventually start killing us if there's any gap in our formation. More often than not, though, we can power through it. Here comes D-Ting again with the big ult, and you'll see D-Ting does do sufficient damage. We just have to get whatever it is, 4 or 5 ults off, and we can take this down, but it is tricky because he is entirely solo DPSing it. And you'll see with this gear, it is pretty underwhelming. So I can get a much better build on him, but I chose to scale it back and not do a 3-slot build. If you can do a better build or a 3-slot build or both, please do that. We're up to 5 stacks of the attack boost now on the boss. And let's start explaining our next unit. That is going to be Kachi. I'm going to let this run in the background as we narrow in on Kachi's key skills. The S3 here, he has these components. He's always guaranteeing a 2-turn increased defense AoE, a great AoE buff for all our allies, but then he can trigger things called a success and a critical success. And the chance to do that scales off of his effect accuracy. Don't be afraid to invest in effect accuracy. It doesn't just help with triggering those successes and critical successes, it also helps with his S2 over here. And this is really good. He's got a 65% chance to set the turn meter back on a single target. So in this case, almost the whole fight the boss by 20%. That is extremely strong. And he can place decreased speed. You're going to want him just to be safe at 200% effect accuracy, just to make this really consistent. However, the minimum effect accuracy you will want him at is 182, and that's because his critical success triggers based off of 55% of his effect accuracy, so 55% of 182 is 100%. We're doing great here, though. Nice, smooth run. You can see D-Ting was in trouble. We got some huge shields, so let's start explaining our last unit, and that is Valerian. Valerian has the death saves from her Hazy Dream. She has the heal over time from her S2. From the S3, when she puts out the Hazy Dream, she also has the health EQ, the HP equalization. But the final thing she's doing for us is putting out really big clutch shields like the one you see on D-Ting here, so we can tank these big hits even when the boss was up to 7 stacks of the attack boost. And that's because she's in an Artisan, and as we go into our build breakdowns now, you will see I have her defense as high as I could make it with my modest 5-star build. So there you go. That's what the successful run looks like. Occasionally, a random person can die like Valerian or Kachi. Less occasionally, D-Ting dies, and if D-Ting dies, the run falls apart. But all in all, I'd say this works 60 to 65% of the time, nearly 2/3 of the time. You'll see, and no reason for you to scale back the comp as much as I did. I did this just to make it as accessible as possible for this free-to-play guide. You can see also for the time, we're coming in at 4.5 minutes. That's basically the standard. The slowest I've seen is like 5 minutes, 15 seconds. The fastest I've seen is like 3 minutes, 45 seconds. 4.5 minutes is about how long this takes. I apologize that it takes so long, but if you want to scale things back this aggressively, and if you want to take this on as early as possible, this might be the comp you're using. The first time I beat this was nearly 2 months ago, actually, with the exact same comp. So let's hop in and let me just show you the builds, and we'll wrap it up there. I'm going to go pretty quick. I think I've explained everyone's role pretty well. If you have any more specific questions, do let me know in the comment section below. But for now, I'm going to put myself in the corner and let's just explain these builds. So for D-Tang, obviously he gives himself the extra crit rate from his passive. This is a solid build, but it's nothing special. I was kind of limited on what kind of gear I had from these sets. I do have a nice shell here, so that's why I chose to go with it. I do not like Keen Eye. I do like Harvest, but these were good rolls from earlier on in my account. So fairly mid-game stuff that I rolled up pretty well, decided to stick with it. I'll click through the pieces very quickly now in case you want to pause it. But all in all, you want his crit rate, I'd say at least at 50%. The higher, the better. Remember, anything over 100, once you include the stuff from his passive, is converted into extra crit damage. But certainly make sure you're not neglecting attack and crit damage. So crit damage, as close as you can to 300%. Attack, ideally get that to 4K. And certainly for skills, no reason not to fully max him out. He's D-Ting. He's the best single target carry in the game, especially while you're progressing. This S3 is a must. This S2 is a must. The S1 is not a must, but this is a way to pick up extra attack, so I recommend it. Now let's go into our 2 SR units. We have Fushu and then Mia. You can swap in any good AoE healer, any SSR that you want, any good AoE support. I think these guys are great just because of the affinities they are, but you can even use weak affinity units if you have strong enough gear or if you've 6-starred them. So Ling Luo can work here. Absolutely. She's going to be a phenomenal healer. Just remember, she's going to be taking more damage since she is blue. She is odd. And then I'll also say Nymphoniel, who just came out, will really help buff up your D-Ting and give some really nice shields. So those are 2 off affinity options. If you want any other suggestions or you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section below. But with Fushu, the build is pretty simple. I told you there were certain speeds I'm trying to hit. The minimum for your main healer, Mia, I found for this to be consistent, she should be at 210 speed. For your other supports, you want at least 230. So if we take a moment, you'll see we're coming in at 234 on Valerian. We are coming in at 254 on Fushu, and we are at 247 on Kachi. So basically as fast as possible, but I found a good minimum there for the main supports is 230, and for your healer is 210. I ran Mia at like 195 for a while, and it was failing a lot more. So bumping that speed helped a ton. Let's focus back in on Fushu though. Once you hit that speed minimum of 230 or so, just dump everything into HP. We look at the shields. These shields are scaling off of her HP. It's going to be 20% of her max HP when she is not skilled out. And you'll see I have not put any perfect lattices into her at all. And that's basically all you're aiming for. If you can pick up some extra defense because you're running an artisan shell like I am, please do it, but you don't have to. You could run a supernova for some additional healing. You could run a gigabyte for some more turn cycling, whatever you want, honestly. Just make sure you hit the stats and work backwards from there. The second artisan is kind of overkill, but I found, though it slows me down a little bit, it leads to a higher success percentage with my runs. That's what I feel like I've seen at least. That is going to be Fushu. For Mia, it's a similar story, right? You're going to want that minimum speed for the healer. I found 210. If you can get her faster, please make her faster. For the HP, just crank that up. If we look at her S3, that is what her heals are scaling off of. It's her max HP. She is fully unlatticed, unskilled for actual level ups. No perfect lattices, just like Fushu. No perfect lattices have gone into her. And yeah, get that minimum speed of 210. If you can go faster, please do. And then crank the HP up to the moon. The one thing I want to point out for the Matrix set bonuses is going to be, even though she is in Bulwark and Swift Rush as the Matrixes on this Codex of Magic, she actually doesn't get any benefit from the Bulwark. It's just 2 that were randomly on this Codex. She is at +8 Swift Rush for some speed, but then +12 Time Weave. This is a good way to counter the fact that I have not put any lattices into her. With the +12 Time Weave effect, she is going to get, can I show you? Yes. She is going to get at the start of her turn a 35% chance, basically a 1 in 3 chance to reduce the cooldowns of all her skills by 1 turn. Pretty clutch since we're so heavily leaning into her S3 and also her S2. To shout out her S2, I didn't put much effect accuracy on her, so you have to get a little bit lucky, but it does land and you get an AoE turn meter pushback. It's pretty cool, but really we want this S3. The big heals are the key thing, but then the reduction in Animus and Shell cooldowns by 1 turn, the extension of buff durations, and the shortening of debuffs. So it's like almost like a mini cleanse that we have immunity from Kachi for a lot of the battle. The reason I'm running her in the Codex is so we can get that double trigger when the ultimate comes a couple times in the battle and keep everyone's cooldowns nice and low. You do not need this, but if you've got it, use it. I think Mia's really good for this fight. 2 more to go. We'll go with Valerian now. The build here is incredibly simple. I'm going for 230 speed at a minimum. Then if we can have any respectable HP, everything else is going into defense. So with Valerian, I want to lean into this Artisan. With this Bramble, we put on only 1 other piece just to get the +4 effect. That's 10% extra defense. Then I got +5 of Strive. That gives a +4 effect of another 10% defense. And then everything else is into Swift Rush, where we are at +12, so we're getting a big speed boost. It's pretty simple. If we look at the skills, I've only put lattices into her S3. This is an absolute must. Hard must. At the start of the battle, you're putting out 1 stack of Hazy Dream. You need this because many runs, depending on who the boss and the attacking hand are targeting, you're going to need a death save. So you need this maxed out at level 5. You're going to need it for any content you want Valerian to shine in. Finally, we got Kachi the Guard. I talked about that effect accuracy minimum. Technically, you can get away with 182%. 247% is certainly overkill, but I think for sure aim for over 200% effect accuracy. After that, make sure he has any semblance of tankiness and crank the speed to the moon. So if we look here, he's in this nice Jackal Guard I rolled up. Very, very good passive effects. And with 3 Matrix Swift Rush and 3 Matrix Time Weave, we were able to go a full +12 on Swift Rush and Time Weave. And there you have it, guys. Like I said, if you have any additional questions, let me know in the comment section below. That is my super stripped back, as free-to-play as possible guide for Terrormaton Inferno. Run this at least a little bit just so you can pick up those 1 or 2 Fury Edge or Ether Plague pieces that will help you complete more advanced builds. If you want to see my actual comp, it is not as free-to-play friendly. Yes, I'm free-to-play, but it took some lucky pulls. It's a classic Lily and Shadow Sonya comp. I'm super happy to share that in just a couple days. I have been fastidious. Big thank you to my editor, Mitchell, for editing this video. Share it with your mother, guys, and if you're not yet playing Etheria Restart, use my link in the description and the top pinned comment. See you real soon, guys. Bye.
Fastidious.